with Thomas Rousseau once again. We were just together yesterday doing disaster relief.
Yes,
I might not release it. Not sure when to release it, so it might not be relevant. But
Yes.
for the hurricane, I saw you guys out there working, doing a great deed, and then I saw the ADL attacked you, and I was just like,
Yes, they
what
did.
the hell? Because you guys really motivated me. You know, I was on vacation, but I got up 4:30 in the morning, drove 2.5 hours, because seeing you guys motivated me, because I realized I used to do a lot of charity work, giving back, and then an organization that happened to be ran by a Jew I worked for a little bit, and realized, oh, they're just scamming people's money. And
They do that.
not saying all those type of, but it really disenfranchised to me.
Yes.
So I really, if you're going to do charity work, it's probably best that you do it yourself. And seeing you guys motivated me, I only put in a day's work. I'm not going to try to overpraise myself, but it's like, at least I gave back something, Like when I was talking to those guys, I'm like, oh, I hardly helped. But he's like, I'm so thankful you came up here still. It's like, well, at least we did something. You were up there like all week. The ADL wasn't out there, and we were working hard. We were working our asses off, and you were working your ass off. You weren't like directing everyone around. You were being a good example. You brought about 30 people?
We brought about, so there were 2 main work days we did, one on Wednesday and one on Saturday, and we brought around 25 guys in the first day, and we brought about 35 in the second day that we worked. And we had some people that were there throughout the entire week, some people that were there working consistently with local volunteers, with the fire department and folks. And, we are a political organization. We are doing this, I believe it's fully in line with our political principles. I want to help America. This is an instance where America has been struck by tragedy. So I believe it's fully in line with our political beliefs. But at the same time, I think it's important to realize the big critique from the ADL was coming from the fact that, they're doing this to prioritize European peoples, or as I call them, simply Americans. But the fact is, this is an incredibly American region. This it was the 4th of July weekend.
We also helped everyone up there.
Everybody.
I didn't ask what
We didn't.
What,
We didn't need
I
to.
didn't ask any of the homes. We helped everyone.
Absolutely. We didn't need to, because all of these public spaces, all of these volunteers, maybe with some odd exception, were people of the nation.
I noticed I only saw one non-white person helping. I'm not trying to critique that. I didn't see a single ADL person helping.
Good on whoever that was.
There was a lot of people helping. There was hundreds of people out there helping.
We didn't have a questionnaire before we approached a job site. We weren't approaching these things with how the ADL might think that we were, but we were showing up, and we were one of the larger volunteer groups. Obviously, out not including search and rescue, fire department, all these things, but in terms of citizens showing up without any state funding or NGO backing, we were perhaps the largest volunteer group that I saw.
It's the largest I saw out there.
Absolutely. And the fact that we are already organized, the fact that we are already a group, we already have men with experiences. I know, and we have local organizers, I know what skills people have. I know who's bringing what equipment. We know how to convoy together. We know how to set up tasks and divide people into teams. And these are skills we learned because we work together in an organization, because we do activism, because we do these demonstrations. So many of these skills, logistical capabilities, personnel, it's all transferable when disaster strikes. People often critique the idea of an organization which has hierarchy, an organization which has standards and rules.
You have to have a hierarchy to keep an organization together.
You fail to realize in how many avenues of life that those exact principles are essential to a proper response. It's one thing to say something online and say somebody should do this, and that's good, especially if you're saying that people should do the right thing. But it's another thing saying, I'm doing this, show up, and we'll do it together, and I'll make sure you're doing it right. That is not only better, but it's more efficient to actually yield the proper result. And we were able to make a huge impact in people's lives.
We were working hard. We got a lot of work. Those guys were so thankful. The one guy almost cried, shaking my hand, and I felt bad. I'm like, dude, I only came here for a day. He's like, dude, you don't know how much I appreciate this. He was telling the story how some of his friends drowned. They had to pull people on the roof. It's unreal. Like this close up came to crying seeing walk in the memorial when I left. There was one of the girls that had died at the camp. It's just like stopping by there and seeing that was just like, as a father, I'm just like, wow. It's like there's nothing I can do to help in that situation, but just seeing that still, at least we could go out and help some. And these people were just so appreciative and so happy. And then to see you guys get hate, that just really pissed me off.
No, absolutely. And I think, it was a very inopportune tweet by the ADL because it got ratioed something like 1,000 to 1 because people don't trust that institution. And I think the unpopularity of contemporary Jewish institutions, whether it's the ADL or whether it's Israel itself, is making sure that whenever they denounce us now, it is such a source of pushback for them. Like, I am glad that the ADL, and I said it in my second address, I'm glad that they denounced what we did, because it makes sure that everybody who doesn't like the ADL, which is practically everybody who isn't being paid by them, is...
I know I'm on their list.
Yeah, exactly. Which is certain now that what we're doing is right. Just look back a few years ago, and I remember tweets about us from the ADL getting all of this positive support, but this time they can't even have their comments on.
You completely crushed the ADL.
They can't even.
You're not allowed to have a Twitter, so you weren't able to do it. But some guys like me and Dan, we completely crushed them for you.
No, absolutely, and they can't even allow comments. They're just throwing the slander out and then shutting the door right behind them. It's cowardly. And they don't actually have a response. All that they're saying to us is, "Hey, they're bad. They're bad." What's your response? What should people be doing? ADL, give money to Israel instead and let all these people drown? I don't know what the answer is. That's probably what their answer is.
It was just so misreading the room to say you shouldn't go out and help. And it was mostly white area, but we were helping everyone out there. We were clearing. We were working fucking hard.
Yes.
And by the way, if you're a Fed, you're a damn good actor. You deserve Academy Awards. I've been around you a few times now, and I pay close attention to little cues and stuff. You were so respected. Everyone around you, like, really, I can just tell they genuinely respect you. And you can't fake that. That's not fake.
No, and I think a lot of that is because, I am a leader of the men, but I don't. I share every burden that they do. I believe thoroughly in the principles of leadership. I'm really passionate about history. I can look back to the leadership of, Andrew Jackson, George Washington, George Patton, all these other leaders, and how they worked with their men and why they were so respected. And of course, I don't think I rise to the ankle bone of any of these men.
Maybe one day you will.
Maybe I can approach the shin. But I think there's a lot of virtues that can be gained there. And whenever the guys are shoveling dirt, I'm there, right? Whenever the guys are, marching out in the sun, I'm there. Whenever the guys are training, working, or we're producing materials to help spread the message of the organization, I'm there. Whatever happens, especially I'm at the front of the marches for a good reason. Whatever happens first
Putting
to
your
me.
face out there.
Absolutely.
Well, at one point, I remember the heavy wheelbarrow, you ran over 3 times in a row, and I go, "Oh fuck, I gotta grab it." You're the one. There's like 6 of us, and you're the one that kept running the hardest part. I hit him like, "Oh shit!" So I ran in and jumped in, but like you weren't even complaining about it. You just kept taking the hardest job like over and over, and it's just like it shows. And you weren't bitching about it, being like, "Hey guys." And we're like, we know, oh fuck, dude, we better help you out a little more.
No, and I think that happens on a macro scale as well. I think when we're putting out the message, and of course, people critique us. Oh, you're taking advantage of the disaster to recruit. It's like, no, I'm showing what we're doing in response to the disaster.
You motivated me to come out and help, and
exactly because
I woke
people
up at 4:30 in the morning. I didn't realize how early it was when I agreed to do it, but I'm a man of my word, and I go, oh shit, 4:30 when I'm on my vacation day. Got up at 4:30 to go work my ass off, but I was treated like a brother right away. Everyone took me right in. Like it just felt really good. I haven't done, embarrassingly, I haven't done hard work like that in years, and it kind of felt good to go out there and work hard with a big group of guys and a camaraderie and actually helping, and how thankful the community was. I'm really glad that I did that, so thank you for letting me come.
Oh, of course, and I mean, it's so helpful for the morale of the men to see the direct impact of their work in a specific scenario like that, because we were working on a place where a lot of people lived.
Literally there was houses we were clearing, and I didn't realize the people that
the
were
residents
lived
were showing
there.
up. Yes. And
once I talked to them, it was crazy. I wish I could have
Absolutely.
got interviews with them, but they didn't want media there. Someone talked to them, the people were mind blowing. Their stories.
Absolutely.
It's a couple of days ago. It's insane.
It's on because and I heard about all the stories from the camps and everything. And I remember, when I was in Boy Scouts, I went to a lot of summer camps, and I would go out there and be in those types of cabins and the canvas tents and everything. And to imagine waking up at 4 a.m. with the water up to your knees and nowhere to go and no way to contact help, that was very much motivating so that we could get everything down there I was looking through. I mean, we're clearing out these rooms, which is all the furniture, and I mean, you need to stop a few times, and furniture is one thing, and you're taking out the floorboards, and you're scooping out the mud, but then you come across a family photo
album. Yeah, that happened to me too.
And you realize
you get a shock.
This is somebody's life that you're looking through, and and then the resident would come up and say, and then your response is so more muted than theirs because they know all the people in that family photo. Mm-hmm. They were there when it was taken. All of this furniture, they can imagine they're sitting on this couch, with their family. They were out 4th of July weekend. Mm-hmm. They had to climb onto the roof of this building.
They were on there all night, 12 hours or something. Because
yeah,
I mean, the guy wasn't even complaining about it. He's like, oh, they left you for 12 hours with helicopters. Well, they were trying to rescue lives. That was far more important than us.
Absolutely.
And it's like they were so humble about it. He was so thankful, and I'm like, bro, I only came here for a day. And he's like, no, I really appreciate it. It's like, hey guys, I'm demonetized everywhere. So if you want to support me and the podcast, go to fightbackpodcast.com and you can buy some cool merch like the shirt I'm wearing now. Hey guys, I would like to announce my brand new free speech sponsor, AntelopeHillPublishing.com. They specialize in foreign and hard to get books. They range from books like Lord Miles, who was kidnapped by the Taliban, to original speeches by Adolf Hitler. If you want to support me and the podcast and free speech, go to AntelopeHillPublishing.com and don't forget to use the promo code FIGHTBACK.
No, and I think during disasters, because Patriot Front has done a lot of disaster relief. All the way back in 2023, we responded to Hurricane Ian. More recently in Florida, North Carolina, it was Helene, and another hurricane. There was about 2 back-to-back. Tornadoes in Oklahoma, floods in Vermont, more tornadoes in Mississippi and Indiana. And East Palestine, Ohio, with the chemical spill. We try to be out there whenever this happens because it is an interesting thing. When these disasters happen, it kickstarts the building of community because it becomes such a necessity. And I mean, it's always a necessity to have these communities, but when the power goes out, when the water isn't clean, when homes get swept away, when families don't know where their loved ones are, what happens, especially in an area like along the Guadalupe River, these people bind together in such a strong way, and there's so much charity, and it's what a lot of the country should look like in terms of community, not in terms of the disaster, of course,
with the help.
But when it becomes a necessity, we realize how quickly our people can get together, how quickly we can form these bonds when we have the motivation, when we have the purpose-driven mentality. And I think that's very interesting with what we're trying to do is we need to build communities everywhere so that whenever we need to respond to anything, whether it's a political catastrophe, a social catastrophe, a natural catastrophe, that we are there, we know who's who, we know what skills people have, we know who has what resources, we have logistics, leadership, hierarchy, response, and we can effectively manage those problems because how you organize is how you do anything.
Yeah, I know. I'm blown away. Like the first time I interviewed you, just the whole week after, I was just like, wow, this guy is like, we're doing it all wrong. We're trying to like vote our way in and stuff, but he's just not even that concerned with that. He's just building from the ground up. He realizes we're not voting our way out of this. We have to build our own communities.
We can't vote our way out in absentia. We can definitely organize our way out, and at some point that will probably include some level of interaction with the conventional political structure, right? But at the same time, I think there's kind of an ideological readout that we need to have in our organizations and institutions where members of Patriot Front will go out into the field. They will network with these other groups. They will network with other spaces. They'll go to conferences and meetings, and they'll meet people who do not agree with us on everything. Maybe they agree with us on most things.
We don't agree on everything, but we can sit and talk, and some of these guys won't do that.
And they'll be in a lot of other spaces and a lot of other avenues, but the thing is, it's very easy when you don't have a structure and a standard and a culture for you to send people to network with, like, people in the Republican Party, for example, and then those people get into a feedback loop where they compromise on their harsher ideals, their more radical ideas, in order to get further into the Republican machine. And then by the time they're in, they're like, all right, I did it, and you don't believe anything of substance anymore. So we need an ideological, a fortress where these men, where our networkers, our political warriors, right, can sally out and then return, right, to this strong culture. And that's what we're doing. We're networking in all these spaces, and you realize, we came across a random, totally, off the street guy who was helping us with disaster relief. And one of the guys, said, hey, he said, what group are you with? And one of the guys told him, well, we're with Patriot Front. And he was like, oh, I'm pro-white too. That's amazing, right? You find these people everywhere. But what we need is, some people, they call PF a cult, which is amazing that they say that, because what they're really doing is they're seeing that we have a strong culture. They're seeing that we have something internally where we are held to a higher standard, where we have something which unites us. And we are all more similar to each other than we are to your average person on the street. But that is a strong culture, and that allows us. But it's not, a cult is reclusive, I think.
Well, you also don't try to put yourself as a cult-like figure. It seems like you always make an effort not to do that. I've noticed. It seems like you really try an effort not to try to put people.
If this is a pyramid scheme, then I'm at the bottom.
It's
that's all wrong. No, and exactly, and I think like I said, a cult is something which is
guys can't question you. Like obviously beginner, but I imagine some of your higher ranked guys could have private discussions with you about disagreements and stuff. If you're brand new, you probably shouldn't come and do that. But no hierarchy. But I imagine the high up guys should be like, hey Thomas, let's talk about something. And I could be wrong. But I imagine you'd be open minded. Like
no, of course. And people say all these things, about my leadership, but I think they don't realize. You've seen how I work with the guys.
No,
it's
really
approachable.
It's
social. I am expressly reasonable, and I think that's why Patriot Front has been so so successful is when somebody has an idea, when somebody comes to the organization and you're doing something different, you have an interesting project. So many of the things that the Patriot Front does is the result of somebody coming to the organization and saying, hey, I'm doing this, or I would like to do this. And in a lot of things, the answer is, how can I help you? Right? How can I help you? How can I be a servant to the cause as much as I am a leader? And the organization is not a single tactic. The organization is not a simple avenue. It is a movement which can encompass a lot of people's life purposes. And I think it can also supercharge them. With networking, with recruitment, we can provide the resources and the manpower to achieve results that I think a lot of other people would really benefit from.
I think it's really important to have a strong leader, but not treated like a godlike. Trump's a perfect example of that. People treat him godlike, and he's been an absolute failure. So you need to learn, if your leader fails you, it's time to move on.
We talked about that when we were doing Relief, and I mentioned that I just reread Washington's farewell address, and he was talking about foreign nations, which we can get into here in a bit. But also he said that if you are habitually in favor of or habitually opposed to any figure or any country, you're enslaved to them. That if you have to have a positive opinion of somebody, like Trump, a lot of Trump supporters, they have to have a positive opinion. If he says something about anything, including especially the Epstein thing, they have to find out how to agree with him.
Exactly.
Right? Or if you have a habitually negative
opposite
thing,
too,
if he does something good, which does happen on rare occasion, you have to find out how to disagree with him.
It's insane.
And then you are enslaved. No matter how much you hate him, no matter how much you love him, if you have that habit, you are enslaved to him. And that's why I'm not constantly engaging with the news cycle. I'm not constantly engaging with the electoral process. I do think it's important. It affects a lot of people, and there are people out there who give commentary on the news and every current event. That is valuable, and people need that, and it's good to stay informed. But when you get into organizing, you realize that a lot of that stuff does kind of just fly overhead. And the result of every news cycle is not an actual change to the world.
What you do for yourself first.
Exactly.
I don't run an organization, but I laugh people dying the president because it doesn't make it doesn't make a mass difference in my life. It's about me and my friends and people I work with building my life up to be another.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just laughable, and as president, people are crying, freaking out. It makes a small difference. Like, we make the difference.
No, and you can do politicians, and especially the president, they can yield change, and especially Congress and the judiciary can yield change, but that is on a macro level where they can change the lives of tens or even hundreds of millions of people a very minute amount over time. But an organization or a social institution, while it cannot affect the institutions immediately, we can wield a huge amount of change on a smaller group of people. We at Patriot Front has been able to totally transform the lives of many of our constituent members, where we've been able to take them in and we can get them into fitness. We can make them good at jiu-jitsu.
I work out with your guys.
Yep, we can get them skilled. We can get them well-read. We can get them educated, socialized, so that they're confident. We can get them to be the man who will, later on, be the kind of man who their wife will be happy to marry. We can make them a better father, as we said in a recent video, and we can also get them into a good career. We can get them into a community. We can totally transform a life for the better. We are involved in the lives of our constituent members in ways that Americans haven't been since history, since 100 years ago or more. And, we try to capture a lot of the virtues from our history. Like when you talk about the frontier, there's this conservative myth of the rugged individual, that the West, that America was won by little individual guys setting out and building a log cabin. No, it was communities, and these communities were 100% intertwined. Right, whenever anything needed to be done, they bound together every single time. And young men were a huge part of that. You would have your families, but each family would have a ring of young men who wanted to go out to seek the future around them. And the organization is attempting to tap into that same frontier conquering spirit which made us a nation. And a lot of that is when we go out there and do disaster relief. A lot of that is when we travel to our events. The spirit of our people is alive. It's in our blood. And when you do the right things, right, when you put yourself in the right environment, you see that it starts becoming to the surface.
Yeah, no, I think you're just so spot on, and that's like after the first interview, I was just like, wow, I was blown away. Yeah. But then you're like the most censored man out there. Like, what is going on with that?
You know what?
If you were a Fed, they'd be pushing you.
I think there is a threshold. You see people on Twitter, who are, their content is very offensive. It has lots of slurs, and I'm not offended by it. And I don't think these people should be censored. There's a lot of other people.
I can be offensive at times.
Yeah. Well, that's
you're way more polite than me, and
I try
and
not
off
to use
camera
slurs.
too. Like you're the same. You've never said any me. You don't get off camera and start dropping N-bombs, and
I might have dropped an expletive or two at the workday when I stubbed my foot. But besides that, no, I mean, we have a very clean message, and I think we have a very professional message and a very orderly approach to things. I mean, look at our, footage of our demonstration in Louisville, Kentucky, right? We were trying to put it up on 2 or 3 accounts the day it went out, and almost all of them were banned within hours or a day or 2. Meanwhile, footage of, the Mexicans looting and burning and everything in California, you could say, oh, well, that's news, that's different. But how is the content of political expression so substantially different? I mean, our demonstrations are newsworthy, to be sure, just like our disaster relief efforts are. But the content is so much cleaner and so much more virtuous, it has to be political. And there's a lot of other people who are pundits ultimately on Twitter or X. Sorry, I'll start calling it X when Elon's
I still call it Twitter too.
It's a better name.
Elon Musk, add him back on X or Twitter. We'll call it X if you add him back on there.
He's busy with his Indian American party. I think it comes down to a group that's actually, and I don't want to use the phrase doing something, but it's a group that is moving people, organizing in physical space, because there is a level of responsibility and there is a level of skin in the game that organizing in physical spaces implies, but there also is a level of you can get involved, of you can see this and it's more than just a like and a retweet or a re-X or whatever you call it. It's you can show up and you can have your life changed for the better. And I think that is ultimately something which the folks running the censorship mills on X are aware of. And I think that's something that they don't like. I think they like everybody in the online
It's okay if we're yelling at each other on X, and I'm guilty of this myself, and yell at each other on X, and not actually do anything in the real world.
Well, you're building up screen time. You can argue endlessly, but you're building up screen time, and I think that's what they want.
But I also do think there is something to spreading the message, like the podcast. I think these stuff is important too. Like I was telling you the other day, I'm like, hey, Thomas, you should probably do a few more. You're such a good speaker, you should do more podcasts.
So I should be on podcasts. I should do interviews.
But then I'm like, who would have you on there? And I thought there's only a couple people we could, I'm not want to talk about the name, but there's a couple.
Yeah, I think we're building it up.
For sure. And you can be pretty funny off camera, by the way. You're the same person, but occasionally you can be pretty damn funny.
I try. But and I think, there's an angle to that. Obviously, I understand digital messaging. I think it's huge. And I mean, a lot of the reasons our marches are so spectacular, is that they reach a huge digital audience. In Kansas City, we had a lot of people see us in person, right? We were marched through all the downtown. We probably had thousands and thousands of people see us in person. But we had tens of millions see us online. I mean, if we had every street we walked down with bleachers on it, packed shoulder to shoulder, there would not have been as many people to watch us in person as there were online. So I understand that, and there's a huge angle to that. And a lot of what we do with our live updates, with our, the spectacle of our activism, is to get past this censorship barrier.
It's just, you're so censored. I'll read as soon as you get a new page, I'll reshare it, and it's instantly gone. You have a Telegram, correct?
We do have a Telegram.
What's the Telegram?
So it's Patriot Front News, and actually if you go to patriotfront.us, there's a social page that has all of our pages. So we're allowed on Telegram, which is good. We actually did have one of our main page. We had our main page device banned, Apple banned, or from the App Store or something like that.
They took it up there crazy. And you push nothing hateful. I've never seen you, even off camera, say anything slightly hateful.
I wish I understood it better. And of course, we never get a reason. Our Rumble account, which I think we talked about in our last interview, was banned without any notice, no email. We just went in to check it one day, and it was just gone. Right, and they don't give us a reason. And same thing with all the X accounts; they're just gone. There's no, you can try to petition to find out what happened, but they never give an answer. And I think that's because they don't have one that isn't. We oppose what you do.
It has to be organized from a government agency. There's no other explanation.
Yeah, well, probably the same government agency that thought it was a good idea to call us feds, which has actually backfired in a lot of cases. And I think this latest
starting to change. I think.
I think it is. I think I look back, and we talked about a little bit about this out in the field. I look back to I think January of last year when we did the march in Manhattan. It was maybe about 80% feds, 20% support. And since then, I think it's almost reversed.
People are starting to mock the federalization because people that pay a little attention, they're like, oh, this guy's doing good. Yeah. And I'm not going to lie. When I first saw you, I was a jackass. I was like, oh, feds. I was guilty of it, and I apologize. But the second I saw you speak on his PBD, he was being controversial, but I saw you speak within 3 minutes. I'm like, oh, no, this guy's sharp, and he's legit, Yeah. Unless I'm pretty damn good at reading people, I've had to learn that having fame for a while. You got to learn there's a lot of bullshitters out there trying to use you. And I'm like, oh, this guy's sharp and not a fed.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's easy to be genuine and have integrity when you only have one set of opinions opinions that you have to worry about.
Yeah.
I only have one personality, one set of opinions, and that's all. I just stay in mode one the whole time.
That's what I noticed, like on camera and off camera, you didn't
Yep.
change, other than being a little more funny.
Yeah, well, you know,
I'll get you funny on camera at some point.
I don't want to risk the jokes on air.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think there is a lot to that. I think there is a lot to the censorship because it is coordinated, and I do think the Fed accusation has blown up in their face a lot.
It had to have been coordinated, though.
I think
Feds.
Just like a lot of government ploys and psyops that have kind of blown up in their face. I think this is another one because it had an effect of allowing us to reach so many new people. Because all the accounts that were calling us Feds were also making us go viral every single time. And they said, hey, let's let everybody know that this group is Feds. But what that actually did was let everybody know about Patriot Front. Yeah. So you just gave us a first introduction. Now, it wasn't the best first impression, but these people are naturally distrusting of what they hear, and that you should be, especially from some AI profile picture conservative, viral mill account. And everybody who actually looks through and digs just an inch under the surface realizes, well, this doesn't make any sense. If we're Feds meant to get everybody arrested, well, where are the arrests? If we're Feds making conservatives look bad, why are we helping out after disasters? If we're supposed to be like some crazy paramilitary, squad, death squad, then why are we so peaceful, right?
Exactly.
And the greatest thing about this saying, oh, they're attacking people is, a black man attacked us and he got his finger hurt along the way.
That was wild. I saw the video. He was the aggressive one, and some of your guys got in trouble for it. They tried to get them in trouble. Yeah.
They tried to sue all this stuff, and I mean, they've tried to sue us into oblivion, but there's nothing to go after, right? And I mean, and also it's all just paper, because the thing is, I think they can't allow a model of what we're doing to be successful. Whenever white folks, Americans, we build communities, we build organizations, we want to build institutions that are by and for our own. We are a very powerful people. We are a very capable and organized people. We are moral and we are virtuous. We have these qualities that can make these things very effective. But they won't let a model show up to the country and be defensively standing on its own legs, because that would show the world, the country,
it can be done.
That this is good. This is a model that works. Why would I want to live in some multicultural, cesspit of a community when I could have a community of my people? Why would I want to invest my faith and time and livelihood and trust in politicians who betray me every single 2 years, whatever, when I can back an actual nationalist? Why would I want to invest in any of these decaying civic institutions when you have an organization like Patriot Front that can reinvigorate these things? They won't allow a model, or they're trying not to. We're not asking them for permission, but they're trying to stifle all these things in the crib, because as soon as there is a defensible pillar of nationalism that is standing up in the country, it's going to stand out so starkly to everything that they've built, which is teetering on the brink of total failure at any given moment. It's held up by lies and contradictions, but we aren't lying. We aren't contradicting ourselves. We are genuine. We have integrity, and everything we're doing is so straightforward and reasonable. It stands on its own.
It looks. I'm good at spotting bullshit, and you look legit to me. That's what I've been around you several times with multiple people. I see the way when we went in one of your buildings right now. I'm not going to say where. We have a gym. We're going to go work out with your guys after. Like, just all the way your guys respect you, the way they help each other, the respect they treated me with, despite me not being
white. And you saw a lot of them. You were working with a lot of them.
I'm not a white nationalist, but I'm still treated with respect. It's not a purity spiral. Like, you have to hold every view I do, which I appreciate you doing that. Some guys are like, oh, you're not a white nationalist. You're a traitor. Like, how am I a traitor when I'm not, like, claiming to be that? Or you're a grifter. What am I grifting? I'm, like, trying to hear your perspectives, and you made some very interesting points and made me think some things differently.
I've seen very few grifters with wheelbarrows before, and I think it comes down to, and I mean, people join the organization, or people who join the organization are pretty close to there. But we have a lot of guys who are somebody's friend. Hey, I want to come out to the disaster relief as a member, and hey, can I bring my friend? Can I bring this guy? And we have people with all these, other folks that we network with, and they're not fully there yet, which is okay. They'll get there. But, we are open to that. We are open to talking to people about our beliefs. We're open to creating spaces where people can come and interact and learn and develop.
You have to have conversations. You can't just be like, oh, you're not good enough, this and that. And that's why I talk to lots of people I disagree with on the show. Sometimes I get further away from opinions. Sometimes they win me over and sway me a little more towards their opinion. Like, I think I don't know everything. I'm trying to learn and figure out. I can see that the country is decaying. I never followed politics because I was so focused on fighting, and then I see the country's falling apart. So I'm trying to find the answers. I don't fucking know. But I think community is without a doubt one of the biggest issues.
No, and certainly, and free speech allows us to have an actual discussion of these subjects. And I think a lot of people have been so boxed into this little window of the political spectrum that they can't actually... The solutions to what we're dealing with lie outside of the censorship curtains of Twitter. The solutions lie outside of what people have been conditioned to accept. And people are so disillusioned because they wonder, why is all this failing? Why do all the conservatives keep betraying us? Why does nothing seem to keep getting better, even though I'm deluged by promises at every election?
I voted for Trump and it still didn't get better.
Is because the solutions are beyond your horizon, right? The solutions are right outside what you have been conditioned to accept. And, when people are shocked, why are they wearing masks? Why are they marching? Why are they using the fasces, right? This beautiful American symbol, which goes back to the founding. These things, are shocking because you are seeing outside of the box that they want to put you in. And I think, sometimes I've used the analogy that a lot of what we're doing is we're building windows so that we can later open doors. I think we need to build a window where people can look into a successful model for what the country should be like. And what we do most primarily is showing what the men of the nation can be like. And then once people see that, they think, wow, I wish I had people like that in my life. I wish I had a brotherhood like that.
Brotherhood's so important. I said, I was treated like a brother. And I really like some of these organizations you go around, you're like, these, not to be mean, but these people are a little bit like, not bad people, but I wouldn't hang out with them. But I have no problem. Like, I would hang out with these guys. I have several guys I got their numbers from. It's just like working out with these guys. It's just like a normal people. It's like...
No, I mean, we have a very positive culture, and we select for men, who do not have, antisocial tendencies or who are bitter. I think also when you are engaged in the way that we are with organizing, it suppresses a lot of you see a lot of people online and they're just relentlessly bitter because again they are enslaved to their negative opinion of the world, so they won't allow themselves to realize when something good does happen or can happen, because then you're not going to be...
They want you black-pilled.
Then you're not going to be sour-faced all the time.
You think it can't be fixed.
Exactly.
I think that's the term they use.
Yes, they don't want to be
black-pilled. Like, we can make things better. We are making things better.
No, and you can, and you need to have hope, because if you don't have hope, then there's no point in having opinions. So being in an organization, showing up in person, I think it can't be understated how much of a social impact it has when guys actually show up and train and work and travel together. It changes the whole dynamic in the culture.
That's what brings the brotherhood together. Like I said, having been around you guys a couple of times, I see that. Like, wow, this is like an actual real brotherhood.
It is, and I think that is something which allows us to tackle a lot of the problems that society has. And it all makes sense when we connect our nationalism, our patriotism, our love of country and heritage into the brotherhood, the social structure we have. It's totally together. It's totally bound up.
Yeah, I think you also understand that humans aren't perfect and make mistakes. Like, you encourage people not to drink, but you're not going to kick someone out for having a beer one time, or as far as I know.
Yeah.
Like, you give a little leeway. You understand, we're not perfect. Let's just try to be better people. I think that's important too. You can't be too insane, it'll drive everyone away.
No, you don't need to join as perfect, but we want you to strive for it. I think I think Ben Franklin had a good section on this in his autobiography where he talked about virtues and what he did. A little history lesson, but he had 13 virtues that he thought were most important, and he said that I'm not going to try to do all 13 at the same time, but I'm going to spend 1 or 2 weeks on each one sequentially, and by the end of that, you'll be ready to start over. And each time you focus on each one of these things, and that perfection is not something that you reach.
No,
perfection is something that you strive for. And in the practice of striving for it, you reach what could be called the perfect expectation of conduct. And I think that's really important. I try to embody a lot of that.
I think it's really important. Like, all my friends, I try to surround myself around people that are working to be better people. Because if you don't, then you kind of fall to their level. Like, sometimes, sometimes it's not just money, but like recently I started hanging out with some guys, Dan and some other guys that are making a lot of money. And they're not focused on money, but I'm like, oh, maybe I should make a lot more money. Not that's the main focus, but you're like, oh, if these guys can do it, I could do it. Maybe not as much as Dan, but you're like, just anything. Same with fighting. Put yourself around the best fighters. Anything I'm striving to be better at, put you around people that are doing it, and it's going to motivate you, and you're going to rise up to the occasion.
Absolutely.
You put yourself around people not trying to accomplish anything, you're going to fall down to their occasion.
No, and with what we're doing at the organization, there's a smaller level of each locality. You have men who train, and I mean, rarely are you ever going to be the best trained guy in your area. or you're not going to be the most active. So there's always somebody to look up to. There's always something to do. And even then, even if you are the best guy in your area, there's a whole country to look to. And then there's the organization itself. The organization itself is always getting better. So every step, there's something to look to.
You yourself know you can get better. Like, I think that's a big problem. I'll use jiu-jitsu, for example, because that's my world. A lot of guys get their black belt, and they're like, oh, I'm an expert now. It's like, no, that's when you first start beginning.
Right.
So if people have black belts, they suck because they stopped learning, and the sport has evolved way past them, you know? Like, I'm a martial artist. I'm older, not training that hard at the moment, but I'm still constantly learning new skills, catching up, open-minded. And there might be someone that I'm way better than, but he has one move that's really good. So I'll sit and listen to that. So it's about staying open-minded in life. And you seem very open-minded, like I said, very approachable. I feel like I can come up to you and, like, you know, privately have conversations with you, and you're open-minded to talk about it. You might not agree with me, you're going to be honest with me, but it's just nice to be able to have conversations without feeling like, oh, I can't approach the subject.
I think being radical in your politics, which surely I am, and even being stubborn in your principles, which surely I am, I think that does not need to come at the expense of being diplomatic. I think there are a lot of people in a lot of places in the political spectrum, and we can learn a lot from each other. And again, rarely, do I ever change one of my principles. I mean, I don't know if I even have. I can change my, but there's a lot of things in politics which are not matters of moral principle, but are instead just matters of practice. And I think people aren't able to differentiate the two. People get attached. You should be attached to your principles, but not necessarily every single tactic that you engage in politically. But people can't differentiate the two, so they think, oh, you do the same thing for the same moral reason, but you do it in a slightly different way, and they think it's a moral issue when it actually is just a practical issue. And that is why you have such amounts of online tribalism, is what I call it, because people will see what PF does and they think, oh wow, these guys suck, this is so bad, this isn't like my favorite person online, this is like this, or you should be more like this, or this group or that group or whatever. But what it really comes down to is just, hey, this isn't my digital little cul-de-sac that I'm in. This isn't what I'm used to. So I want to oppose this because it just all these little petty conflicts. But these are practical issues and not necessarily moral issues in most cases.
Yeah, well, in the pro-white groups, there's so much infighting and jealousy. We probably should save that for the next little thing we're about to do. But there's just so much infighting. I think a lot of that's like jealousy, and it's weird. Like, I'm constantly attacked. It's just so much. Like, people need to work together. There are certain core things I have where I won't work with you. So there are things, I certainly believe, like, I will not work with you. But there's a lot of things that I can work with people and work with and make alliances where I don't agree with them everything, but as long as the core things. But you should have things like, you know, if you're like trying to push that training on kids, like, I'm not going to do anything with you. I'm not going to work with you. You know, like, if you want to send over money to Israel, I have no interest of like partnering with you. There's things like that. But
no, of course, and you know, I'm the same way. We have strong principles, and there is a threshold that if you don't believe the right things, you cannot join the organization, and we won't help you, right? But on the other case, you know, we approach a lot of guys who are very new, and there's a lot of people who come to our politics from the position of being largely apolitical, right? And they just see what's going on. They're a bystander to history, but we want to bring them into the game. And it's not so much a matter of convincing somebody on the opposing side as much as it is, hey, you don't really know what you know. And we can help you with that, and we need to be accessible to those kinds of people. Because you can't have an organization, you know, we are not a subculture, right? We are not something which is drawing away from society and being repellent to it. We are a counterculture, right, where we are placing ourselves in the center of the room and saying, hey, we're better, we have answers to these questions, we have solutions to these problems, get on it. Right? And that allows it, and I mean, with disaster relief, it's just a great example of us jumping into the center of the problem and saying, hey, look at how well we can solve this problem, and imagine how we can solve any number of problems that face society, country, the world, you know? It's about setting an example.
You know, and I think being a leader, you have those situations, like, most people can be better, but occasionally there's someone you got to kick out. You know, I'll go back to fighting my world again, you know? The gym world you run, you know, someone has to be enforcer in the gym. By accident, I got stuck of having to be the guy. Someone comes in being a piece of shit, you know. Sometimes I can literally beat them up there. If he comes out the next day, usually they either come back with an attitude change or the next day, but if someone's coming in being a parasite to the gym, causing a problem, the whole culture can shift.
So it can.
Like, I kicked out, I'm not saying names, but like a famous UFC guy one time because he didn't want to do parts of the workout. And I'm like, no, we do our whole workout as a team. I do it, everyone does every aspect. You're not going to sit out the one part you don't want to. And this guy's at most gyms will let these like UFC guys away with it, but it's like I won't tolerate. Like we do everything as a team here. You know, you're not doing it, and someone else says you don't have to do the part. Yeah. So you do have to have some standards you hold to.
And I think men need to be in some kind of culture that has duty and responsibility.
There does have to be some standard.
Every man, I mean, you look at history. Every man, maybe with some exception of social outcasts, existed in a culture in society which had expectations, whether it's your family, your church, some civic organization, the military, something. You had somebody looking over your shoulder and saying, hey, there's social responsibilities. Now, I believe in personal liberty. I also believe in collective liberty. I think and if you're going to have liberty as an individual and liberty as a nation, there's certain liberties our nation should have, our communities should have, but at the same time, you need to have a balance with social responsibility. In American history and Americana, literature, we look back and we see the phrase ordered liberty very many times, because our founders and our historical statesmen would balance the concept of American liberty from what was happening, say, in the French Revolution or in the various concepts of anarchism or what have you. We have an ordered liberty. That liberty is not some totalitarian destruction of all rules. Liberty is something that men aspire to, and something that has a responsibility to be placed upon us. Washington said that insofar as the people of your country, I'm paraphrasing here, have responsibility to the state, they must also be more enlightened. So Americans should have a voice in the government. Americans should have a way to petition their representatives, etc. But the more power you have as a citizen, the more responsibility you have to be smart, to be capable. And that's why originally, you look back into history, and who could vote? It was white men over 21 with landowning, which they had a business, they had a farm, they had something, they were invested in the country because they literally had a piece of it in their ownership, right? So we need to build back, and we're not going to start restructuring that whole principle of society by asking Congress to add a new amendment to the Constitution. Maybe we'll get there. Maybe we could start by removing a few. But what we can do is we can create these cultures. We can create these cultures in various networks around the country where men do have expectation, where the more power a man has, the more responsibility he has to fulfill a social duty to his people.
I think standards, like I have such high standards with my friends, and they have the same back to me. It's like so insane, like someone will say they'll do something and not do it. Like if I'm friends with someone, they say they'll do something, they don't do it. Like I'll give them one warning, like, no, like if we're friends, like we have high standards. Like if I say I'm doing something, it's done. Like you look out for your friends, you help your friends, but it goes both ways. And friends should have extremely high standards of each other, and social organizations. It's like you have to rise to the occasion. You can't like be a flake, not keep your word, have no honor. We need to start holding each other to standards. And I think having a group can do that. It makes you like, oh, we need to have higher standards. And so many Americans have no fucking standards.
And there's
nowadays.
something more that unites us, right? You think of a lot of friend groups, and what is the uniting factor? Oh, well, we get along. We like our fantasy football league. We all like a certain brand of beer, or video games, whatever it is. There's no uniting factor. So whenever you approach a problem, you don't have anything greater than that problem that unites you. And this goes with society as well. If we don't have anything which unites us, like a heritage, a race and nation, the whole conception of identity, if we don't have anything that is bigger than our problems, then nothing is going to make it past the problem. And the problem will destroy us. And you see that at the microscopic level with, apolitical friend groups. They're not just apolitical, but people that don't have virtue, they don't have responsibility. And we are building something which our purpose is so much greater than any local differences or in little regional discriminations that people have about, oh, I want to do it this way, oh, I want to do it that way. There is a supreme sense of purpose, and we recently filmed a video asking, what has Patriot Front done for you? And I think purpose was the most used word in everybody's answer, because that's what we're doing. We're connecting all these things that you do in life, and people have complex lives. We have very complex lives nowadays. We have a million things tugging at your attention, but what matters most is we have so many more things that are demanding our attention, but so much less purpose, which helps us to tie it all together. So I think that is what we're injecting into people's lives, and I think that is what's giving people a sense of what life should be.
We absolutely need purpose. When you don't have purpose, you're not happy. The first year I retired, and they COVID lockdowns, I wasn't happy. I had no purpose, wasn't doing anything. Men have to have a purpose, the community, something we're striving to be better, and it's like you guys have that. Methylene blue has been used for over 100 years for medical purposes and recently surged back into popularity. It has been shown to help repair brain tissue and improve memory, cognitive function, energy, and mood. Research suggests that methylene blue could have neuroprotective effects, possibly aiding in conditions like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and depression. Go to MerakiMedicinal.com and use the promo code FIGHTBACK for a discount. Hey guys, Jake Shields here. As you know, a lot of my guests are extremely controversial. So if you want to support free speech and my podcast, go to fightbackpodcast.com.
Absolutely.
We're having to have to do a short interview today because we have a packed day.
Yes.
So I'm going to switch it up a little bit.
Let's do it.
Like, I could talk to you for hours, but I'm just really interested. You seem to be so American history in particular, you seem to be so knowledgeable on it. Like, who are some of the people that you look to for influence?
So I try to look through a large spectrum of American history because I have a lot to learn, and I may be more well read than a lot of people on it, but I'm still very much a student. I also think it's important to say that I don't look at American history and I find a figure and I say, all right, I believe every single thing he ever said. I believe every single thing he ever did. Because I think, that goes back to what I said about, if you're either habitually favor or habitually opposed to something, you're enslaved to it. So I want to have that freedom. But, obviously I look to the Founding Fathers, which I think is a cliche answer, but it's a cliche for a really good reason. Washington has been very, reading his works, and he is supremely virtuous. I think he's a founding father, the founding father for a reason. Also, I think Theodore Roosevelt has a lot of his deeds are much more relevant to a man in the modern day because he spoke a lot. He spoke a lot about masculinity. He spoke a lot about the drive in life because Washington, for contrast, was living in an era where you needed these things to survive. But once Theodore Roosevelt got around, society was industrialized. A lot of people did not need these virtues to survive and to even prosper, but they didn't become any less necessary. And I also recently read a book on George Patton's leadership principles. And of course, we can argue about the Second World War, but it can't be contested that he was a phenomenal leader and a phenomenal leader of men. And he had a style of leadership which was incredibly charismatic and almost, he was out of his time, right, in the 20th century. He was somebody who was a callback to previous ages, and I think there's a lot of lessons about decision making, a lot of lessons about suffering. And when he and his troops, for example, were in California and they were all training to learn how to fight in the deserts of North Africa, everybody stayed in the tent with no AC, right? When AC was kind of new at the time, but he was right there with them, right?
He was a leader with the people,
Exactly. So I think that's a big example. Andrew Jackson is another great one.
I want to add,
go ahead.
He famously said America fought on the wrong side during World War II, and then seriously died after that.
I think the exact, method in which he wrote that, or exactly what he said, I think there's a source to it, and I think he believed that. I think he believed that in some context because he had a huge antipathy towards the communist, which is right, which of course you should. Everybody should have that antipathy. And he believed that, immediately after the war, or even, before the end of the war, maybe peace should have been made with Germany or something, but Germany would have been a great buffer against the expansion of the Soviet Union. And that didn't happen, of course. Half of Germany, or more than half, was allowed to fall behind the Iron Curtain. And how many tens of millions of people suffered because of that? Because of the maintenance of this failed alliance, that volumes could be written on it. But what's also interesting is if you fast forward after the war and after Patton's probable assassination, you can see that the idea of propping up Germany as a buffer against communist expansion was exactly what happened in the Cold War. Of course, it was purely military. It was militarily, and it was not due to actually propping up nationalism. But it was a very much watered down concept of what Patton would have proposed had he been allowed to continue. And I think he's been vindicated in a lot of ways. Not only
America
his character,
and look at Germany right now. I know that's a deep. I could take an hour getting that, so we'll skip that day. But you can see since World War II, Germany and America hasn't gotten better.
No, a lot of things have not gotten better, and we have a more complicated society. There's more money than ever somehow. I mean, there's trillions more dollars in the world, but where is it all? Right? We have people, and this is something I also try to help with members of the organization. Of course, we can can only do so much now, but we're constantly growing in this capability, is that if you are an American man and you are living a virtuous life, right? You aren't doing anything that is disgusting or degenerate or something which should make you a social outcast, and you're working and you're a hard worker and you have a positive ethic to that end, you should be able, just by that alone, you should be able to afford a house. You should be able to afford a wife who raises your children and doesn't need a full-time job of her own. And if you cannot do these things, then society has failed you, and you have every right to seek change. And you need to seek change, just like is written in the Declaration of Independence. We need to seek, whensoever these rights are taken away from us, whenever they are infringed, we must alter or abolish these systems of government.
Yeah, you should be able to provide for a family on one income, and it's very, very hard to right now. And that's just sad to see. People happen to have their kids raised, a year-old daughter, a 3-month-old daughter that they're sitting there handing away to a school, and it's like crying for his mother. That's not the natural order.
No. And I think, we have such a materialistic society, which is because we have ripped out the purpose, right, which is supposed to be at the center of things, that everything just becomes about money. Everything, and this is what, you have you've spoken to a few communists, right? And they have a lot of critiques of the current system of things, which is, the critiques can be accurate.
Well, that's why I speak with them, because they have some interesting points.
Everything is material. There is nothing which binds people together in that conception that isn't simply their job or their class, right? But we aren't just workers. We aren't just people who live in an economy. Yeah. We are members. The human race, or the human species, I should say, is split up into races, nations, communities, families, and individuals, and these are extremely real. Even if race wasn't real biologically, even if it didn't have civilizational impacts on different groups of people, and it does, even if it didn't, it would be just as real because of all the sociological, political, economic, social impacts that it has. There is no concept in which we can't deal with it as a real thing. And then, you get back to the families, that we can't build families. I mean, we can, it's just much harder. That all these things have built up as a barrier to us. And then where's all the money going? Well, it's being turned around to the immigrants. That, Indians can get, $200,000 for a loan so that they can build a new business, so that they can start a family, so that they can invite the rest of their family from India, and there's too many billions of them for that to be a successful strategy.
Yeah, Elon took my verification away when I was like, can we stop bringing these H-1 workers over illegally, whatever do we need? I'm not anti-Indian, but can we not bring hundreds of thousands of Indians over to take our high-paying job? And then boom, my verification disappeared.
It's funny how that works. Yeah. The inclusion of all these different groups, and I mean, they're pursuing their own interest, and you can understand it, but it's not right. And you can see very clearly that they are prioritizing their own. They are prioritizing building their own communities, their own enclaves, and they're doing it. And it's totally, absolutely untenable if we wish to have a country that has any form of representative government. You cannot have a society, a country with any kind of representative government, in which case there is not a single identity which binds everybody together, because everything will start to break down, and everything is breaking down.
Yeah. I think it's possible to do it without race, but there has to be something majorly combining us, and we don't have that.
There would have to be something.
I was in a new situation through fighting. We were able to bind that, but that's not a country. And our country doesn't have anything majorly uniting us. So without that,
there would have to be something of an equivalent social cohesion factor to race and nation that is not race and nation. And I'm not even sure if that could be religion, because I mean, outside of personal religion, I think there's a lot of it.
The Muslims have a lot of fighting though amongst themselves.
But you even see religions do have lines which do largely run along culture groups, right? Yeah. If there was an Arab religion, it would be Islam.
But if there is a Europe, countries,
and there are religions that are unique to the European people, or at least that have been, Christianity, originated in the Middle East, but it has become very, very European, because that's for the majority of history. I believe the majority of Christians for the majority of Christianity have been European. So I think that culture has had an effect on the practitioner of that religion. So even then there are factors, and I don't know if you would be able to look at history and find a purely religious society that was also incredibly multicultural that had any kind of scale. Or tenure.
Most of them have failed, huh? That really made me think. I think you were the one that told me that, showing how most of the multicultural societies have failed throughout history.
And it certainly has. And we don't want society to fail. I mean, we want everything. I mean, and ultimately,
some people, it seems like they want it.
They do. Well, an America that is conscious of its race and nation, an America that is conscious of its heritage and our, Anglo-Saxon lineage and the origin of our laws and our Constitution and our understanding of civic virtues will be better for everyone. We will have a better conception of our responsibility both domestically and internationally. And a lot of the people that are coming here, and I do believe that a lot of people are getting deported right now, and that's very good. I'm not going to, say that I support Trump or anything so extreme. But every single person that gets deported, who is an illegal, who's a foreigner, who is unassimilable to our culture, is a positive good for the nation. But even for these other countries, I think having a system by which the United States extracts labor, which, and they say, oh, these people are working all these good jobs, they're really hard workers. Great, we have hard workers.
Yeah, we were joking about that yesterday, like, oh, before I hired a Mexican, but I have to go work myself. But
Exactly.
felt good. Like, why can't we, put a little pride in our work?
And and I also mentioned if you look at Benjamin Franklin wrote in the 1750s his reflections on the growth of mankind or something like that. He said that slavery in the British Sugar Islands, it had this social effect where all the manual labor was done by Africans, and then all of the managerial aristocratic stuff was done by Europeans. But what that created was that the European families, the youth, even the ones who weren't that rich, who weren't rich enough to have plantations, looked down upon labor. I think that's happened because I think
it's kind of happening now.
We have this, laborial underclass of Mexicans largely, or Indians or whatever, and then that means that, when American parents are raising their children, there's this idea of, oh, well, you need to go to college and you need to get all these liberal degrees so that you're not one of those people who welds for a living.
But a lot of times that pays better than all the college jobs too, so it's crazy, but it's looked down upon. It's weird.
It's needed. We need people, and sure, there's a lot that we can work on with automation, and there's a lot that we can work on with innovating new practices, and I mean, ultimately, I think that's a huge thing that drove the Industrial Revolution and, American industry in general, is we saw these problems, and Americans need a certain quality of working condition and living condition, right? Our Anglo-Saxon principles demand that we want homes with space.
Yeah.
We don't want to be living in, 100-man to a square foot tenements, right? We want dignity. We want cleanliness. And because of that, whenever we find a job that is so difficult, we innovate. We find solutions. This is in our culture. This is in our history. This is in our being. And the more we are able to reclaim our labor force and our economy, the more we will actually be able to drive innovation, which will affect the rest of the world as well. The innovations made in the West make their way to everywhere else in the globe. And we want those innovations to be positive. We want them to be new ways that you can find solutions to pressing problems, and not new rainbow flags that you're going to fly outside of your embassies. Because that's not bringing them anything.
No, it's just I make the joke is because I have a bunch of Afghan friends, but right before the Taliban marched in, they were putting George Floyd murals up in what's the city called, Kabul. My friends were laughing about it. They're like, they saw this, they're like, yeah, fuck that, bring it in. And they did. Most of the people welcomed the Taliban.
Absolutely. I mean, you've created. I mean, what's been created, especially through the Zionist subservience of the United States, especially in the Middle East, has been a country that is despised. We talked about it in our first interview that our loyalty to Israel. I mean, not our, but as the United States. Yeah, not mine. But the United States' loyalty to Israel has made us a pariah on the world stage. When in fact, if we were just however much more hands off we could be, then Israel would be a pariah state, and the United States might actually be able to find more friends on the globe.
Yeah, a lot of the reason we're hated is because of Israel.
Yeah, and the thing is, America has such great geography for this. We have these great big oceans on either side of us. We have these mountain ranges that flank our coasts. We have, strong borders, and throughout most of history, our northern neighbor has always been peaceful. Our southern neighbor has always been violent, but European countries, I mean, you think in terms of millennia, right? European countries, how many wars they fought to achieve safe borders, defensible positions, right? Reliable exclusion of other groups which would cause civil strife, domestic tumult. America had this, and it was destroyed. I mean, and we can reclaim it. But a chief issue with our tranquility was our geography. So that we've taken all these foreign border conflicts and we've imported them into our cities. We've taken our safe border. We've taken our safe border with with Mexico, which we had for a long time. I mean, if you actually look into George Patton, his first big military moment was he was part of the expedition when Pancho Villa crossed the border and sacked a town in Arizona, I believe. He burned it to the ground and killed a bunch of people. The army sent a punitive expedition into Mexico.
Wow.
And Mexico was dealing with one of its 75 civil wars at the time, and they tried to say, no, you can't do that, and we said, screw you. Right?
Yeah.
We said
we can do what we want.
We are sovereign on this continent, and we have a right to punish the people who come over our border. And frankly, I wouldn't be opposed to something similar happening again. But anyways, we have imported the world's problems, which we used to be separate from. And you look back at Thomas Paine, and he's famously said that all we have to do is trade with the world and be free from foreign influence, and we could be happy. We could be happy because we have been gifted so many gifts of our placement in the world. A lot of what we're doing is to try to bring back sanity to government, to legislation, to our culture, because this is such a great place to do it. America, this continent, it's so well situated.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I keep going forever, but we have a lot going on, so I'm just going to wrap with one or two more questions. What do you think of these anti-Semitism laws? I think it's absolutely insane. They're trying to fit special laws for one group of people.
I think in a lot of cases they keep trying to define it, because in order to make something illegal, you have to define what it is. And I think that, in that, it's a huge issue for them, because they're going to have to define very blatantly truthful things as anti-Semitism. And it'll be interesting to see if these are able to get through Congress, or if they'll be able to be challenged in the courts. But ultimately, I think that is kind of hopefully the last gasp of a very exasperated attempt to sanitize and prevent honest discussion of Zionist overreach, of Jewish influence in the country. And if you need to outlaw, you understand this. If you need to outlaw criticism of you, then what does that say about the criticism? If it was so wrong, then prove me wrong, right? If you were so right, then just explain it to me. But these people don't engage in discussions.
Exactly. You should be able to sit down. That's why I sit down and talk to people I disagree with. And you can see, oh, maybe he's full of shit. Oh, maybe he made a good point and changed my mind. Having open discussions. Any other topics we should hit before wrapping up?
Well, I think with our experience, yesterday. Gosh, it feels like more time has passed. With our experience,
such a crazy long week.
Yeah, with our experience yesterday, it was great to see you out there. It was great to see the positive impact we had, and it was great to show you, because you saw, I think a couple of the guys were the same ones that we trained with in Las Vegas.
I met a few of the guys before.
And we're going to do some more training today. Hopefully, we have a few more things on the agenda.
Yeah, we do today. I just want to add one thing. I think neither one of us are money motivated, so we both make the mistake of never saying where people could help. For me, you can buy some merch at Fightback Podcast. I always forget to say that. Yeah. So why don't people help you?
So if you're interested in getting involved, or you're interested in learning more about us, then you should go to patriotfront.us. And if you want to see our other social media accounts, you can go to the social tab on the website, and you can find all of our accounts. We are quite big on Telegram. We have several Telegram pages that coordinate different forms of content. We try to keep our videos up on X. So if you search Patriot Front on X, you'll probably find some of our videos. You can also find some of our videos on your podcast account on X. And we want people to keep informed. We want people to be engaged. I've done great interviews that are also featured on the social page of our website. And patriotfront.us, you can find everything you need.
Hey, thanks so much.